He turned off the TV without looking at me. The room suddenly felt too quiet, like the walls were listening. Then he said it, calmly, almost politely. "Get out." No shouting. No anger. Just those two words. I stood there holding the mug I had just washed, my hands still wet, not knowing what to say. After 23 years of marriage, I expected arguments, maybe insults, but not dismissal. I didn't ask why. I didn't beg. Something inside me froze. I quietly went to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the dent in the mattress where I slept every night. My clothes were still in the closet. My photo was still on the wall. Yet somehow I was already a stranger in my own house. That night I slept on the couch. He didn't stop me. He didn't even look back when he went to bed. In the morning I made tea out of habit and left the cup on the counter untouched. He walked past it like it didn't exist, like I didn't exist. I packed a small bag, only essentials. No dramatic goodbye. Just silence. I moved into my sister's spare room. She asked questions. I said I needed time. That was easier than explaining how invisible I had become. The days after were heavy, slow. I replayed every conversation in my head, every moment I might have missed. Was it something I said? Something I didn't say? Then the next day, someone knocked on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, a man stood there, tall, well-dressed, unfamiliar. He said my name like he already knew me. His voice was calm, professional. "I think we need to talk," he said. My stomach tightened. In that moment, I realized this wasn't just about a broken marriage. Whatever was happening had already started long before he told me to get out. I didn't invite him in right away. Something about the way he stood there, too confident, too prepared, made me uneasy. Still, curiosity won. I stepped aside and he walked in, glancing around my sister's small living room like he was memorizing details. He sat down only after I did, folding his hands neatly in his lap. He introduced himself as Daniel, said he worked in financial recovery. The words meant nothing to me at first. I told him there must be some mistake. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile people use when they know you're wrong but don't want to argue yet. "Your husband asked me to find you," he said. That hit harder than I expected. I hadn't realized how deeply I wanted to believe my husband didn't care. I asked why he couldn't talk to me himself. Daniel paused, choosing his words carefully. "He believes you already know too much," he said. My chest tightened. "Know what?" I asked him to explain, my voice barely steady. Daniel reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thin folder. Inside were copies of bank statements, property papers, signatures I recognized far too well. My name was on some of them. Others had signatures that looked like mine but weren't. "He's been moving money," Daniel continued. "Large amounts. And legally you're tied to it." I felt dizzy. I had trusted him with everything, finances, paperwork, decisions I never questioned. I had signed documents without reading them fully, believing we were building a future together. Daniel told me the house wasn't really ours anymore. Not on paper. Neither were the savings. "That's why he asked you to leave," Daniel said quietly. "You're a liability now." I laughed, a short, broken sound. Didn't feel real. It felt like someone else's story. I asked what he wanted from me. Daniel met my eyes for the first time, serious now. "I'm here because someone is going to come after him," he said. "And if you stay silent, they'll come after you too." The room felt smaller. He stood up, placing the folder on the table. "You have a choice," he added. "But not much time." And just like that, he left, taking my sense of safety with him. I didn't open the folder right away. It sat on the table like it could explode if I touched it. My sister kept asking what was wrong, but I told her I had a headache and locked myself in the room. When I was finally alone, I spread the papers across the bed. Numbers, dates, unfamiliar accounts. Yet the signatures, my signatures, stared back at me. Slightly off but close enough to pass. Close enough to ruin me. I thought about all the times he said, "Just sign here, it's routine." All the times I trusted him because trust was easier than doubt. My hand started shaking. This wasn't carelessness. It was deliberate. He hadn't just pushed me out of his life. He positioned me to take the fall. That evening my phone buzzed. A message from him. Just one line. "Don't talk to anyone." No apology. No explanation. The final confirmation that Daniel was telling the truth. I replied with nothing. Silence felt like the only power I had left. The next morning, I noticed a car parked across the street. Black. Tinted windows. It was still there an hour later. My sister said I was being paranoid, but my instincts told me otherwise. I remembered Daniel's warning. Not much time. I started gathering my own documents, old tax returns, letters, anything that proved where I had been and what I had actually signed. Every paper felt like a small piece of armor. I also began writing everything down, dates and conversations, things I used to ignore. I realized how little of my life had truly been mine. That afternoon Daniel called. I hadn't given him my number, which sent another chill through me. He asked if I had read the documents. I said yes. There was a pause on the line. Then you understand why disappearing might not be the worst idea, he said. I asked him what he really wanted. He didn't answer directly. Instead he said, "Your husband made enemies. Powerful ones. And he used you as a shield." The call ended before I could ask anything else. I stared at my phone, realizing something terrifying. Staying quiet wouldn't save me. It would only make me easier to erase. For the first time in years, fear turned into resolve. If he thought I would quietly carry his sins, he had underestimated me. That night, I barely slept. Every sound felt louder than it should have been. The creak of the floor, the hum of the refrigerator, a car passing too slowly outside. I kept thinking about the black car and the message on my phone. Don't talk to anyone. The words no longer sounded like a request. They sounded like a threat. Early in the morning, I went back to the house. I didn't tell my sister where I was going. I needed answers, and I needed them from the place where everything had started. The key still worked. That alone hurt more than I expected. Inside, the house looked exactly the same, but it felt staged, like a set after the actors had left. I went straight to his study. Drawers I had never opened before were suddenly easy to pull out. I found flash drives, hidden folders, and a locked cabinet. The cabinet took longer, but I remembered the code he used for everything, our anniversary date. I felt sick as it clicked open. Inside were contracts I had never seen, names I didn't recognize, and a second phone. When I turned it on, messages flooded the screen. Short, sharp exchanges about money, deadlines, and consequences. This wasn't a mistake or a bad investment. It was something darker, something planned. Footsteps froze me in place. He was standing in the doorway, his face unreadable. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he sighed like I was the problem. "You shouldn't be here," he said. I asked him why he used my name. Why he destroyed my life without warning. He didn't deny it. He just said, "You were supposed to leave quietly." That was when I understood. Love hadn't faded. It had been replaced. Replaced by fear, greed, and survival. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "They won't hurt you if you don't interfere," he said. "But if you do, I can't protect you." I held the phone up between us. "You never did," I said. Behind his calm I saw it, panic. And that told me everything I needed to know. I left the house before he could say anything else. I didn't run, but my legs felt weak all the way to the car. The second phone was still in my bag. Heavy like a brick of truth I couldn't drop. I expected him to follow me, to shout, to stop me. He didn't. That scared me more than if he had. I drove aimlessly for almost an hour, replaying his words. "I can't protect you." He had never meant to. Protection was something he reserved for himself. I finally pulled into a crowded grocery store parking lot. Somewhere public, somewhere I could breathe. Sitting there, I realized I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. He knew I had evidence now. And the people he was afraid of would find out soon enough. Daniel called again that evening. This time I answered immediately. I told him everything about the house, the cabinet, the second phone. He went quiet for a long moment. "That changes things," he said. "For both of you." I asked him whose side he was really on. He didn't pretend anymore. He told me he worked with people who cleaned up financial messes before they became criminal cases. Quietly. Efficiently. My husband had tried to outsmart them. He failed. "Right now," Daniel said, "you're the only thing standing between him and complete collapse." I laughed bitterly. Even now I was a shield. I asked what would happen if I handed everything over. Daniel was honest. My husband would lose everything. his reputation, his freedom, and I would still have to prove I wasn't complicit. But, he added, your cooperation could save you years of damage. That night I made copies of everything. I hid the originals somewhere even my sister wouldn't stumble upon. For the first time I wasn't reacting, I was deciding. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Tired. Older. But no longer invisible. He had told me to get out, thinking that would end it. Instead, it was the moment I finally stepped in. The pressure started the next morning. Missed calls from unknown numbers. A warning slipped under my sister's door with no name on it, just a sentence typed and cut too cleanly to be casual. This doesn't concern you. My sister wanted to call the police. I told her not yet. I needed to move carefully, not loudly. Daniel arranged to meet me in a cafe across town. Neutral ground, he said. When I arrived, he was already there, sitting where he could see both entrances. He looked different in daylight. Less confident, more tired. That told me things were accelerating. He explained that my husband's accounts were being frozen slowly, in a way that wouldn't alert the wrong people too fast. The copies I'd made mattered. Timing mattered even more. If I moved too early, I'd look guilty. Too late, and I'd be buried with him. Then he said something I wasn't prepared for. He's planning to leave. Not just leave the house. Leave the country. New identity, new accounts. And if that happened, everything would land on me. The signatures. The paper trail. The silence. I felt strangely calm. Fear had burned itself out, leaving clarity behind. I told Daniel I would cooperate, but on my terms. No disappearing. No quiet deals that erased me again. I wanted protection in writing. Witnesses. A record that I had stepped forward before he ran. That evening, I confronted my husband one last time by message. I told him I knew about his escape plan. I told him I wasn't covering for him anymore. He replied almost instantly, anger bleeding through every word. He called me ungrateful. He called me reckless. Then finally he begged. That was the moment it truly ended. I blocked his number, turned my phone face down, and signed the first document that put my name on the truth instead of his lies. Whatever came next, it would be loud, public, and real. And for once, that didn't scare me. The fallout didn't happen all at once. It came in waves, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. News articles started appearing online about a regional financial investigation. No names yet, but I recognized the phrasing, the careful language. Daniel said that was intentional. Pressure without panic. My husband tried reaching out through mutual friends. Each message carried the same tone. Confusion, concern, regret. He wanted to talk like adults. I didn't respond. I had learned that silence, when chosen, was no longer weakness. It was distance. Then one afternoon, Daniel called and told me he had been detained at the airport. Not arrested, detained. His documents had flagged inconsistencies. Enough to stop him. Not enough to end it quickly. My hands shook when I hung up, not with fear, but with the strange grief of finality. The man I had built a life with was gone, even if his body was still somewhere nearby. I was asked to give a formal statement. Sitting in that room, answering questions, I felt exposed but also solid. Every fact I shared untangled another knot he had tied around my name. The investigators listened. That mattered more than I expected. Afterward, I walked outside and stood in the sunlight for a long time. I realized how long it had been since I'd stood anywhere without waiting for permission or approval. I called my sister and told her everything. She cried. Then she laughed through the tears and told me she was proud of me. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in weeks. I knew there would still be consequences. Legal ones. Financial ones. Healing wouldn't be neat. But the story was no longer being written about me. I was finally holding the pen. Somewhere, he was sitting in a room much like the one I'd sat in before, quiet, stripped of control. And for the first time, I felt no urge to save him. Only to save myself. Months passed before things truly settled. The investigation widened, names were released, and his finally appeared among them. Seeing it in print was surreal. Like reading about a stranger who happened to share my past. The house was seized, accounts dissolved, and the life we built together officially closed its doors. I signed papers not as his wife but as myself. There were hard days. Days when starting over felt heavier than staying broken ever had. I downsized, learned how to manage money I'd once ignored, and took a job I was proud of. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. Every paycheck felt earned, not borrowed from a lie. One afternoon, I received a letter from him. Handwritten. No return address. I didn't open it right away. I carried it around for hours, feeling its weight, then finally tore it in half without reading a single word. Some stories don't deserve an ending. They deserve an exit. Daniel faded from my life quietly, just as he had entered it. A final call, a brief "you did the right thing." And then nothing. I understood that silence now. It wasn't emptiness. It was space. On a warm evening, I sat on my sister's porch watching the sky change color. I realized something simple and powerful. The moment he told me to get out wasn't the worst day of my life. It was the first honest one. Everything before it had been a performance I didn't know I was in. I hadn't been discarded. I had been released. And when the TV played in the background, low and harmless, I smiled, knowing that no one could ever turn it off and erase me again.